Today is the last day of the clown killifish and tiger lotus tank. It is, well, I did the update video, the final update video a few weeks ago, so I have known that it's coming to an end, and today is the day that I finally got the time to do it. So this video is going to be split across the weekend. So today I'm going to be draining the tank, moving the fish to their new home in the fish room, and moving the tank over to the other side of the room in preparation for tomorrow, where I plan to rescape it. It'll be a new biotope inspired tank. The plant species will not be biotope correct, I don't think. But I'm not going to tell you what fish are going to be stocked in this tank. It's going to be up for you guys to guess what I'll be stocking in there. I hope you enjoy it. So before I actually catch the fish out of the tank, I've turned the filter and the heater off, and I'm just going to drain a bit of the water out. It's just going to make them a bit easier to catch, because these fish do like to jump as well, and when I'm in there with a net, I don't want the water level too high and risk them jumping out of the tank. So I've taken about 20 litres out of this tank. It's just going to make it a lot easier to catch the fish. I've got a jug that I'm going to fill up with some of the water I've removed. And this is what I'll use to transport the fish down into the fish room. It's not the perfect transport vessel. Ideally, you'd want sort of a darker container with a lid to stop them jumping out. Keeping fish dark during transportation actually helps reduce a lot of the stress that they experience, because they go into that dormant sort of nighttime sleeping mode. But they're only going to be in this jug for about a minute, so I think this will be absolutely fine, and I can make sure that they don't jump out of this little jug. I've matched the water parameters between the two tanks, so the fish can be moved straight in. They're going to be getting used to their new surroundings, so they don't want to be getting used to new water chemistry as well. So it's time to catch these fish. Hopefully it goes smoothly, but if not, you can all laugh at me. So it's win-win really, isn't it? When you're catching fish, you can either use one net or two nets. You can use two nets and guide a fish from one into the other. But this is actually not my preferred way of doing it. There you go, I've caught one of the males already. Personally, I find working with two nets is quite challenging. My hand-eye coordination with my left hand is pretty useless. I'd much rather just use one and use the side of the tank as my second net, so I can guide the fish towards that. And there we go, I've got 3 fish in one go. Lift them up. If you're transporting them a little way, keep the net covered and then invert into your transportation vessel. Nice and easy. There's another 2. So there we go, we have all the fish in the jug ready to take downstairs into the fish room. As you can see, they're all still nicely coloured up. Actually, you might not be able to see. I'll take you off the tripod and then I will show you. So there are the fish. You can see actually one of the males here, it's the smallest male, is actually looking a little bit skinny. So I don't know whether the other ones are just stopping it from feeding. But they'll be going into a much bigger tank now, so there should be a bit more space for them to spread out, have their own territories, and hopefully he'll start to gain a bit more of the body condition. All of the females are still nice and chunky though. So the lights in the fish room haven't actually come on yet on their timers, so I've just manually turned on the one tank I'm going to be putting the fish into for this. So if the video comes out really dark, I do apologise. I just don't want to disturb the other fish too much while I'm sorting out this. For those of you that saw the final update video, I will link it in the bottom of, in the description of this video. You'll have heard me talk about the stankhorn algae that I have problems with in the tank I'm just closing down. I really don't want to pass any of that into this tank. It's doing really well and I want to keep it nice and clean. You can see I've got a lot of green algae on the rocks, but that actually adds to the natural look. I don't want to introduce stankhorn algae growing over every surface. Because of this, I don't want to transfer any of the water that these fish are held in into the other tank. So I will be pouring the jug through the net and have all the fish. And then we're going to gently release the fish into their new home. and this is actually a sneak peek for you guys. This plant over here, Hygrophila lancea, will be featuring in the Netscape. I got hold of it a few weeks ago, and I've been putting it into this plant farm tank just to start growing while I wait to close down the other tank. In terms of stocking for this tank, my plan was to do clown killifish and the jelly bean tetra. I can't remember the scientific name for them, but I will pop it in as a little text on the screen for you all there. That will be very close to the Sierra Leone biotope in terms of fish stocking. The planting definitely isn't, but that's okay. I like to try and keep the fish with other fish that are from the same region, even if the layout isn't actually a biotope. So yeah, that's the plan. If I can get hold of some of those jelly bean tetras, they'll join these clown killifish. But until then, it'll just be them and a load of shrimps. And talking of shrimps, it's time to go upstairs and try and catch them all out of the tank I'm shutting down, because there's a lot of them in there and they'll be in amongst the leaf litter and very difficult to see. Before I attempt to catch the shrimp out, I'm going to remove any of the lilies that are left and drain some more water out, and hopefully try and get some of the botanicals out as well. As you can see, there's a lot of algae everywhere, but there are also shrimp sort of scurrying about all over the tank, and it's going to be impossible to catch them. So this is why I'm going to be removing all of this leaf litter and lilies before I try and catch these little shrimp. So as you can see, it's completely empty now. There's a bit of botanicals, they're really fine sort of broken up bits of leaves that I can't get. So now it's time to try and catch as many of the shrimp as I can. I'm going to transfer them into that planted tank with the clown killifish. There's already loads of them in there, so they'll just go in and join the rest of them. That's where they originally came from. So that's all the shrimp caught. Again, they're in this jug. There are actually some really nice patterned really shrimp in here, which is nice to see, because I don't always see them in the tank. I got far too many of them, so one day I am actually going to have to get rid of some. I'll take them to one of the local shops and hopefully they can find some good homes for them. But for now, they can all go in with the killifish, and I won't film that because I'm going to do exactly the same as what I did with the killifish. So that's all the shrimps dealt with. The lilies are in here. Look at this. I broke a lot of the root system, but you can still see it's got a hefty root system there. Got some botanicals tangled up in it. So I'm going to keep these wet. I'll put them in a holding tank or keep them in the bucket, and I'm going to give them to a friend. Actually, some of these lilies were originally donated from someone, and I'm going to pass on the favour and give them to someone else as well. So that's sort of almost purpley leaf variety there. Out of water, it's really quite beautiful. So I think I might put one of them in my knife fish tank just so I can keep it going. I did already put one in with the new clown killifish tank, but it doesn't seem to be taking off. But yeah, most of them will go to a friend, and then maybe I'll keep one in the knife fish tank and see how it does in there. Anyway, put them back in there to stay wet, so I don't have to worry about misting them. And I'll empty all of this out. I'm going to try and get most of the sand out as well, just because I'm going to have to move this tank, and it's going to be quite heavy to do so with the sand in there. So that's the tank emptied, the sand, most of it's removed. You just need to sort of probably wash it down with some more fresh water and siphon that out to get rid of the rest of it. Last thing to do before I can move it is get this filter off of this tank and install another one to keep it alive overnight. I do plan to change some of the filter media that's in there before I set it back up, but the sponges and stuff will stay there, and that will kickstart the bacteria and the cycling process in the next layout, because I'm not going to use much if any, of the sand from this layout either. So it'll be basically a brand new tank if I killed off the filter media, which I don't want to do. So yeah, going to install it on probably the tank with the clown killifish and go from there. Then we'll move this tank and that'll be it for the day, I think. I'll have to build a desk this afternoon to replace this. Yesterday afternoon I moved the filter and moved this tank. I did that off camera mainly because I didn't want the filter to be taking too long. It had already been turned off for quite some time and I wanted to just make sure I got it back running and oxygenated water going through to feed those bacteria. I also needed help moving this tank. It's quite heavy and I didn't want to break it, so I got my partner to give me a hand and she didn't really want to be on camera. So yeah, effectively you missed that bit, but it wasn't anything too exciting. Anyway, I've got the rest of the sand out, given it a good clean. The old backing that was on here was a nice brown sort of Botanicals style black water background. The new project isn't going to be tinted waters at all, so I've removed that and I'm currently debating whether to leave it clear and just have the blue wall visible from behind, or attach a white backing. So it's going to be quite a heavily planted clear water layout. I'm not sure which is better. I think white, so I'm going to probably scape it with the white one on, and I can always remove it if I don't like it. My aim for this tank, well, I've got a big chunk of wood here and it's going to be going from sort of the back left corner to the front right, and then I'm going to mound up the substrate up into that back corner as if it was sort of where the sediments are getting deposited in a meander in the river. So I want sort of fast flow around the front where there's lower substrate and less things being deposited, and then banked up into sort of where the meander would be depositing all the substrates, the stones, the wood, and that's where the plant's going to be as well, because it's shallower, slower flowing, and gives plants a chance to grow. That's the idea, that's where the inspiration has come from. The plan is to bank up some lava soil in these bags that I used for the soil substrates in the last scape, in that back corner, and then I'm going to lay the hardscape on around that, and then put the soil substrate that I want to use to support the plant growth around the hardscape. I don't want to put loads of soil substrate in underneath where the stones and the wood is going to be, because it's going to be wasted. There's not going to be plants feeding off of that area, and this will keep it nice and aerated, keeps all that water flow going through it, and stops any soil substrate sands becoming anoxic from being too deep. That's the idea. So I'm going to bag up some lava soil and then start putting the hardscape in. So now I have my focal area for where the main bulk of the hardscape is going to sit to give slightly more height. First bit of wood I'm going to put in is this big piece, because this is going to be the main feature of the layout. Let's push the light a bit. So initially I'm thinking something like that, but I think it needs a bit more height here. I do have a second piece of wood. Now which way? Okay. I'll tap that. The reason I'm going to put a piece of wood on behind, which you can't really see from the front, is because this tank is actually going to be viewable from the side as well as you enter the room. So I want to keep it sort of dynamic and interesting from both views. I'm not sure I like it though. I think it might look better with just the one piece, but raised up slightly more. So I'm going to take this out for now. Anyway, enough of this. I got to time lapse it while I play around. So I had a slight change of plan actually. I've used more of the soil than I was planning on, just to keep this really high up. Yeah, it just didn't quite work with the second piece of wood to lift it up on top of, so I used that instead. I've put stones around, large sort of river cobbles around to keep the soil in place, to separate it from the decorative sand. I've also got some sort of more coarse gravel to put in amongst that to blend a little bit more between the two, and to give it a bit more of a river feel. A lot of the sand would typically be blown away when the really heavy rains come, so the slightly coarser gravel will give it that transition and be sort of more likely to be in this environment. Planting up around the back and sides is the plan. Not sure I've really got enough space to plant, so we might have to, yeah, we'll see how it goes. This wood is actually very chunky at this end and has used up a lot of the area that I wanted to plant in. So hey, I'm quite happy with the layout. I think it's got a good sort of river style, which is what I wanted, that meander style. It's quite banked up in this corner. So I'm actually gonna fill it up, I think, before I plant. The plants are already in a tank in water, and I think actually getting this filled up, getting the scatter gravel, decorative gravel in place before I put the plants in might really help me work out what I want to do and if there's any tweaks I want to make. Obviously it will look quite different when it's got water in as well, so being able to visualise that before I plant and to make sure I'm happy with everything, I think is a good idea. Just grabbed 2 buckets of water, it's going to be about 20 litres, so I'm going to slowly fill it up with that. I'm going to use a jug and just pour it gently onto the wood, and hopefully not cause too much disturb substrate and clouding. The soil substrate I've used is actually from the old tank, so it's already been used for sort of 8 months, and I won't get that peak amount of ammonia and plant nutrients coming through. I'm going to be planting this quite lightly to begin with, so I would not be able to cope with that in terms of planting, and would have had algae blooms and all sorts of problems. So that's why I'm reusing the plant substrate. It's still going to take in fertilisers from the water and feed those plants nicely over time. Even though I had soaked this wood, I'd left it out overnight, and you can see there's a gap here. It's starting to float at this end, which is really not good. So I'm going to have to stop there for a minute. I don't know whether to glue it. I wanted to use this wood for something else, another scape in a moment. So maybe I'll just get another stone and pop it in here, and hopefully that will weigh it down. But yeah, annoying. So pausing on that filling, and we'll try something else. So you can also see it's a bit cloudy, but that stone isn't quite high enough to stop the soil spilling over, so I'm just going to pop another one in there. You can see it from above as well, look. There's a little gap where the soil's going to be able to come through, so I'm just going to pop a little stone in there. And that's why you glue your rock or fully soak it before you use it. What a nightmare. So I've just popped the stones back in place and more. Hopefully now it will stay down. It has shifted slightly. I want it further up here slightly because there's a gap here. And I didn't want that. I want it buried into the sand because anything raising up into the water column here where there's high flow would cause this whole wood in nature to move. And I don't want that. I want it buried into the substrate a little bit. So it needs to be shifted, but for now it's weighed down and will hopefully stop it from moving until all of that air gets removed. So I've got it up to a level that I'm happy with. I don't want it too high. Again, fish jumping out always scares me a little bit, so I've just kept it down. And again, I'll put covers over the top as well. I do need to reposition that wood, but in order to get the filter back up here and get this water starting to clear, I need to add some dechlorinator, as always. So I'm going to be using the Aquaforest AF water conditioner, and I'll just add that to the tank. It's about 50 litres I filled this up with. So I'll work out how much I need to add and pop it in. It's not too much actually. The concentration of this is really good, so a little goes a long way. Yeah, I only need 5 ml, so that's ideal, nice, and not very much to add. So I'll just do that. So I just took a break for a bit and went out for a bit of a walk and collected some botanicals from the woods nearby. And now it's time to get the filter in. I've actually just brought up the inlet and outlet pipes and connected them up ready to go. And first job is to change some of the media in the filter. So before I had some of the sort of plastic style filter media, I don't really like that. It always floats up to the top when you open it up and can get caught up in the wrong places, and it's much better in a sump than it is in an external filter. So I'm going to swap that over to some of this Aquaforest Life Bio media. Never used it, but it says it's already got some nitrifying bacteria within this. And yeah, so let's give it a try. It's a new setup, so hopefully this will help kickstart everything, and it's got a lot of surface area, which is what we want from filter media. So I'm going to open up this filter and get the filter media swapped over and then get this filter started. Hopefully then we'll start seeing some clearing in that water, because it's still a bit cloudy. So the filter's now on. You can see it's still purging some of the air out, and it's got even cloudier, full of floating debris from the filter. This always happens. So I've cleaned it out, changed the filter media. There's always going to be particulates in there. I've got now left to do some planting and some botanicals to add. After that, I will do a quick water change, maybe tomorrow evening, and just try and clear it up a bit more. The filter should do a lot of it, but I don't have any really fine filter media in there, so it's not going to get rid of those really small particles very easily. So I think a water change will really help with that. So yeah, I'll do that probably tomorrow once I've planted, help let it clear a bit. And soon, hopefully I can take all these rocks off and we can get it looking how it's meant to look. Just been down and got the plants out. They're all just in this jug here. They came out of the plant farm tank, so they're all just going to be popped in and around that back left-hand corner. So yeah, I'm going to carry on with this. So there we go. Pop some Hygrophila lancea in and around this wood, hiding a lot of that soil from view, all around the back. You can't see it because it's so cloudy. All around the back. And yeah, time I think. So I think it probably needs a bit of a water change now, rather than waiting, because it's just so cloudy. I really want to make sure that the plants are getting enough light. But otherwise, I'm really hopeful that this is going to turn out really nice. And yeah, water change. I'll do another clip once it's cleared up a bit. and then you guys can comment to see what species of fish you think are going to be calling this tank home. Try and imagine it without the rocks and stuff on top of the wood. They obviously won't be there. But yeah, like I said earlier in the video, this plant species I don't think is native to the region that I will be doing, but the Hygrophila genus is there quite a bit, so that's a bit of a clue for you. So it's been a few days since I set up this tank, and in that time I've managed to take off some of the stones that are holding the wood down. The wood's still not quite waterlogged enough, and I do think I need to keep these two in place just for a little bit longer. But today I've come up here to check on it, but also to add some botanicals to this layout. This more sort of dynamic environment, the lighter leaves would probably just get washed downstream and wouldn't settle out here. So I'm mimicking that in my choice of botanicals, where I'm going to be using seed pods which look a little bit heavier and would potentially get caught up in here, rather than using the typical leaf litter. Now, I've never done a tank with just seed pods. I've always used some leaf material as well. So this is something that I'm going to have to get used to. I might not like it, and in which case I may add a few bits of leaves in and around here where they would get caught in the flow. But I am hoping that the seed pods on their own will look really good, and I won't need to add that. So I'm not entirely sure I'm happy with these botanicals. I'm not sure they look quite natural enough. I've tried to place them where the water would sort of let them settle out. Water flow would let them settle out. I don't know. I'm not sure whether it's because they're so new and don't have that sort of aged look or what, and the plants aren't grown in enough. They just don't look quite natural. I'll leave them in there for a bit and we'll see how I go, and I might remove them one day. So the botanicals that I used for this were the beetle palm outer fruit wall, and these are the cocoa curls, I think they're called. The beetle palm were supplied by Black Horse UK, and these cocoa curls actually came from Tannin Aquatics via George Farmer. So a little bit of a story there with those ones. The beetle palms are actually collected in India, and that is where this biotope inspired aquarium is sort of based on. So there's a hint for you guys trying to work out what species of fish are going to end up in here. They are from India. So I really like the fibrous textures of both of these botanicals. I think when they break down, they're going to sort of break up and flow away a little bit and leave just the heaviest bits remaining. And at the moment, they're just too intact. So we'll see how they go. I actually don't want any tannins in this layout. So I've pre-soaked these for many days and really boiled them hard. If I start to see some tannins coming out, I will be adding carbon into that external filter just to remove it. I want a nice crystal clear flowing stream without the tannins. And that's not something I'm obviously very familiar with. I quite like quite dark tinted tanks, but I'm trying something new. It's good to expand your horizons and see what goes on. Let me know what species you think I'm going to be putting in this aquarium, and also let me know what you would put in here. Maybe you've got a better idea or a different idea. I might not listen, but it'll be interesting to see your thoughts. And equally, if there's anything you would change, maybe you think a different plant would look better, different botanical, let me know. Maybe it's something I could change and improve this layout. It's obviously something quite different to what I would normally do, so yeah, I'm still learning, but expanding my horizons and trying something new. Really hope you enjoyed the video. Please do like, subscribe. It helps my channel grow and therefore helps me be able to produce more videos and more tanks, and hopefully, yeah, just grow this channel a little bit. Thanks for watching, and more to come, I'm sure.